Hey everyone, it is Wednesday, May 10th. The time is just before 1:30 p.m. and the temperature outside is a gorgeous 18 degrees Celsius here in downtown Toronto. And this is University Avenue. And to the left is the Financial District. And across the street is the Entertainment District. And we have an upcoming mayoral election on June 26th. And one of the leading candidates, Saunders, has gone on record saying that one of the things he would do is rip out the bike lanes here on University Avenue. And he'd strongly consider ripping out the bike lanes on Yonge Street. So I thought, what better to do than go for a ride on those very bike lanes. So I've got here my e-scooter. So in a moment, I'll be hopping on the e-scooter. And I'll be riding north up University Avenue to Bloor. And then I'll head over to Yonge Street and we'll head north up the Yonge Street bike lanes up into Midtown Toronto. All right, so this is north up the east side of University Avenue, and this is King Street West I'm approaching. And this is right where the bike lanes on University begin. And it's a beautiful spring day. Although the sky is a bit hazy, I've heard that might be because of the wildfires in Alberta and British Columbia at the moment. It was like that yesterday as well. So perhaps the skies aren't quite as blue as they should be. But these bike lanes were made permanent back in December of 2021, along with 6 other what were then temporary bike lanes. And that was voted on by City Council, and I think the vote was something in the neighborhood of 20-2. City Council also approved a plan to add an additional 100 kilometers of biking infrastructure to the city. And this is Queen Street West coming up, and I believe this might be preparations for expanding Osgoode subway station here to accommodate the Ontario line. But if that's not the case, let me know down in the comments. As you can see, the bike lanes are closed off here. One of Mark Saunders' primary arguments was that the bike lanes created traffic congestion and they reduced the amount of local business that was received, and that they increased EMS response times, which is particularly important along University Avenue since there's 4 major hospitals coming up. But the problem with those arguments is none of them are true. I think he's trying to paint bike lanes as sort of a left-wing idea and creating an us versus them mentality. This is Armory Street right here. And if you're wondering who Mark Saunders is, as I look back at the CN Tower. He was the chief of police, I think, from sometime in 2015 to 2020 here. And had virtually no lasting legacy from that position. He also ran in the 2022 General Ontario election, I think for the Don Valley West riding. And he lost that to a Liberal candidate. He was running for the Conservative Party. This is Dundas Street West. No, thank you.
Okay.
It's okay. No, thank you. I think he had one of those Falun Gong pamphlets. If I took it from him, maybe he'll feel good about it, but I'm just gonna chuck it in a waste bin at the first opportunity without reading it. So there's really no point in engaging in that little song and dance. But another candidate for mayor, Josh Matlow, criticized John Saunders' ideas as being quote-unquote stupid, and I would have to agree with him. There are countless studies that show when you build bike lanes on retail corridors, business goes up, and if you don't believe me, just Google it. And there was one in Toronto, I think, on a stretch of Bloor Street where they had bike lanes. And over the course of 2 years, business was up 25% in total. So this is Hospital Row. On the left, we have Mount Sinai Hospital. There's also Princess Margaret. And on the right, Sick Kids Hospital and Toronto General. None of which have objected to these bike lanes or stated that emergency vehicles have a slower response time resulting from them. When you think about it, this is really a rather stupid street to pick on the bike lanes. It's very wide, there's plenty of room, you still have 2 lanes of traffic in either direction. And if you're going to say the businesses are affected, well, there's not many businesses to be impacted. Again, I think he's just trying to get points with the suburban crowd who don't live in or particularly care for having a walkable, cycling-friendly, livable city. And as Josh Matlow pointed out, and also what's well known is when you increase lanes of traffic, you induce demand and you end up with more cars. So the more options people have, the better for motorists. So if you're a driver, you want more people to have options to get out of their cars. That makes things safer and more comfortable for you too behind the wheel. And we're at College Street, which has bike lanes, and they're currently going to be implementing protected bike lanes along College Street. Which generally means some kind of physical barrier between cyclists and traffic. Ideally, it is curb separated. So I'd consider this an example of a protected bike lane, although often, ideally, the bike lanes are elevated up at sidewalk level, but that works. Now it's just a painted gutter, although at least there's this buffer here. And this is Queen's Park. So University Avenue has ended. And that's the Provincial Legislative Assembly on the left. And we're heading up towards Bloor Street. And I came down this way in the opposite direction, which I will admit is visually better than the direction I'm recording this video in. We're going from south to north. I'll also be going uphill most of the way. Get a nicer view of the city coming in from Midtown. That's usually the direction I record. I felt like doing something a little different and starting downtown. There's Queen's Park itself. There's an example of bad cycling etiquette. I was reading a post on Reddit Toronto earlier today about cycling etiquette, and I pretty much agree with everything it said. Such as when you're at a red light, do not jump the queue and go left of someone who's already waiting there. Just get in line. An exception being if you're one of those guys that goes 40 kilometers per hour and you know you're faster than everyone. Otherwise, just queue up, and you also block people who want to make a right turn by moseying on up to the front and going beside the person who is already there. They did not have a walk sign. I was ready to stop. And pretty soon, I will not have a bike lane to ride in. Sign says stop here on red, so we will. Another thing it mentioned that I agree with is stopping on red lights, but treating stop signs as Idaho stops, which means you slow down and yield. And as long as you're yielding to anyone who's there before you or has right of way, I'm generally a fan of that. It's proven to be safer and less disruptive to the flow of traffic. So I think this bike lane will be fully restored once that construction is done. There's the Royal Ontario Museum on the left. The Gardner Ceramics Museum on the right. And straight ahead north of Bloor Street here, University becomes Avenue Road. And the bike lane ends right here. But we're gonna go right. That guy's yelling at them for some reason. So in 2021, in December, when that University bike lane was approved, this was also approved with it. These bike lanes along Bloor Street and Danforth, and they were expanded. A Porsche surrounded by flowers. This is the swanky Yorkville area. Is this truck making a left or a right? Just hop off and walk this part. One of the advantages of an e-scooter. No problem. Here is Bay Street coming up. There's someone on an e-scooter in the crossing. And the excellent Canadian-based The Urbanity channel has a video on bike lanes, and it talks about the different kinds of people that will get out and ride their bikes when bike lanes appear. And the largest group of people that are on the fence are more inclined to come out when protected bike lanes appear. So that's when you have that barrier, which isn't present right here between the bike lane and vehicles. I'm going to turn left here onto Yonge Street. This is right where the Midtown bike lanes begin. A scramble crossing. I was coming down from Midtown. This felt like an obstacle course. There was a few spots where the bike lanes were closed due to construction. There's about half a dozen vehicles at one point or another blocking the bike lanes. And until the city actually decides to enforce anything, you've got to stand your guard. So far this year, there's been 3 deaths of cyclists on bike lanes. I'm not sure how that would compare to the norm, but obviously it's 3 too many. Got a police vehicle here. Maybe try putting some kind of lights on, I don't know. If they're on official business, I don't mind that. And this is Church Street on the right, Davenport Road on the left. And these bike lanes were actually made permanent earlier this year. City Council voted overwhelmingly in their favor again. And there was a bunch of cyclists queued up behind me. No one tried to jump the queue. But when you're at the front of the line like that, It's especially important to stay to the right in case someone faster does want to go around you. Although ideally you should be all the way to the right all the time anyways, unless safety dictates otherwise. So these bike lanes appeared as part of a pilot project. And the average commute increased by less than 2 minutes. So no real noticeable impact on motorists. And considering the benefits to the communities it serves as a whole, it's a very small price to pay for more people out on bikes, people being in better shape, less cars on the road, and of course the associated boost with business to retailers along this stretch of Yonge. Although sadly the bike lanes are not permanent. Outside of Midtown, there's a small stretch to the south down by Lakeshore where there's bike lanes on Yonge. And there are plans in Willowdale in North York that have been approved to add permanent bike lanes. And there's also a plan to put a small stretch of bike lanes downtown that's been approved. And I imagine once that's in, there'll be pressure just to connect them and have them run from the lake all the way up to Midtown, and ideally all the way up to Steeles, the northern border of the city. Here is Rowanwood Avenue. I think the leading candidate in the polls so far is Olivia Chow. I don't think she's opposed to any of these bike lanes. There's also this misconception that it's the drivers who pay for our roads. And you'll often hear the argument the roads are for cars and cyclists don't pay for them. Well, that's a load of horseshit. Gas tax and vehicle fees do go towards the major highways operated by the province, but these roads and city-owned highways, they do not. If anything, it's non-drivers subsidizing drivers who use roads more.
He see a squirrel and he's gone.
There's a look back towards downtown. I'm gonna bump my scooter up a speed notch here because we're about to climb a hill. As I head up towards Yonge and St. Clair. And when you're on your bike, struggling to get up this hill if you don't have a motor and there's no bike lane, you can feel particularly vulnerable. One of those things when you're hill climbing, you tend to get wider on your bike. You have a little more side-to-side action and you're more focused on exerting yourself than anything else. But when you got a motor, it's pretty effortless. There's one more hill like that to climb. Speaking of bikes, I've been meaning to fix up my single speed and get out and record some more traditional bike rides instead of the e-bike and e-scooter rides. This is Yonge and St. Clair, where one of those 3 cyclist deaths unfortunately occurred. You'll see the ghost bike for that just up here on the right. There it is. He was a Sheridan College student. So there's some bad cycling etiquette right there. The guy in the blue jacket just moseyed on up and went around a guy who was faster than him, and then he had to pass him. Not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but still, that's a dick move in my books. I don't know why I said it that way. Books. Got a right turning car, gotta make sure that they see you, and that driver did. Now we're going to dip down into a valley of sorts. It's Mount Pleasant Cemetery on the right, and the subway tracks emerge above ground on the left. So these bike lanes follow a subway corridor and a fairly busy stretch of Yonge Street. I'm not sure what the usage numbers show, but it was more than enough to vote them in being permanent. There goes a southbound subway train. Look at this, we've got people walking, people on bikes, transit going by. The more options, the better. This guy in front of me is not going very fast. It's a tough hill to climb. I looked over my shoulder, saw no cars. But sadly, these bike lanes come to an end just north of Davisville up here. There's someone loading onto a wheel trans, you never mind that. Our once nice protected bike lanes are now just a painted gutter. and in half a block will completely vanish. And now you can see the difference and why so many people are far more inclined to get out when you have proper bike lanes. Now you're just riding with traffic. You got cars parking on the right, vehicles merging in and out, cars buzzing you quickly on the left. And again, all of these businesses here, or most of them, would benefit if these bike lanes were extended. It's just a win-win-win for everybody. There's Manor Road. What I'm not going to do is take this up to Eglinton. We're just going to go left here at Berwick. So this is the Yonge Eglinton neighborhood. All right, I challenged myself to get out, make this video, and get home by 2. It is 1:58, so I will fail that mission, but not by much. I'm heading north on Duplex Avenue. And this stretch of Duplex here is chewed up pretty good with all the construction vehicles rolling by. It's in dire need of a resurfacing, especially when you're on a scooter with tiny wheels like this. And here you have the bus bay. You know, all these big heavy buses pulling in and out. And this road here really gets chewed up. Look at it. The Midtown skyline, the camera's picking that up. Oh, that guy in the blue jacket is straight ahead. I don't like what he did. He went right and was in that right turning lane, so he would have been blocking any vehicles that wanted to turn right. He seems to have a bit of a me first mentality. Fantastic day. I'm quite certain those bike lanes we took will be there for some time to come. I'll pull into the library here. And finish this up. So I hope you enjoyed this one, starting in the financial district down on University Avenue, heading north up to Bloor Street, and over to Yonge and up the Midtown Yonge Street bike lanes. And again, if you reside in the city of Toronto and you're of voting age, go out and learn about the various candidates and find one who aligns with your values. Hopefully not Mr. Saunders, but if he does, it's not really my place to tell you not to vote for him. my camera here. And anyways, I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. If you wish to support the channel, there's links to my Patreon and YouTube channel membership down in the description. I have an Instagram account at Johnny Strides. And there is a super thanks button appearing below these videos if you wish to say thanks that way. Anywho, thank you for watching and enjoy this beautiful spring weather. I will catch you in the next one. Yoink.